Paul Pholeros, who's been the principal architect of a practice working in Sydney on urban, rural and remote area architectural projects throughout Australia and overseas. Paul is also one of 3 directors of Healthabitat, which has worked to improve housing and the living environment of Indigenous people in many suburban, rural and remote areas of Australia. So would you welcome Paul, please?
Hopefully this is working. How's that? Thank you, and boy, it is glaring. Very simple. I was lucky enough, and I say that very advisedly, to study about 50 metres from this building up the road in the Faculty of Architecture. I was even luckier that in my supposed year out where you were meant to work in an office and get practical, real experience as an architect, I convinced the university, or a few of us did, to take a bus around Australia. And we grabbed an old transport double-decker. We did it up in the back of the faculty up City Road here, and we drove round the edge of Australia, very slowly, I got to say. And we got back, and that's on the Nullarbor Plain in 1974. All true. What it did, though, was one extraordinary thing, and that was it introduced me to the people and the country of Australia, something that I don't think I've ever forgotten. It's probably led to a large extent to the sort of work, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the architecture. It's not an architecture lecture. But imagine you cut Australia. That's a cross-section. I think the key goal of most of the work I've been involved in is a bit like the shadow on the desert, to put the least impact possible onto the place. Shadow's beautiful. When you walk away, the shadow goes. And I just want to quickly, and it will be like a movie, I'm lucky enough to work in some wonderful places, and this is, sorry, get this working. For the Faculty of Biological Sciences at Sydney University wanted a shed up on the barrier reef to study fish and coral, so I'm lucky enough to do it. That's the island. You can walk around it in 3 minutes. That's the tree that gave us inspiration of how to build the building without using concrete. That's the way we kept it in the ground. We built it. It survived 6 cyclones. There's a series of buildings there. It generates all its own power, disposes of all its own waste. And all the scientists studying there are the people who've written every textbook on environmental protection. So the toughest clients in the universe, not just in the world. And that's some scientists. Flip your head and go to Central Australia, one of the great, to me, the sort of spiritual centre of the country, which one day we'll understand. This is near the WA-SA and NT borders. And when we've got to build a number of houses for doctors and nurses who work for Aboriginal communities in this, we decided we'd build them in Alice Springs. We then put them, that's in a yard near the Alice Springs airport. We then put them on trucks and we shipped them 800 to 900 kilometres, and within 4 days we erect them. That's the house completed up top, and staff can move in and do their work as doctors and nurses. Challenging country, beautiful country, but also complex to get buildings that are cheap and work well. Been lucky enough also to work overseas and in a number of times, but this is one where the central government in Beijing decided that their cities were falling apart, and in the early 2000s they needed to build 7 projects to prove that you could design more sustainably. And these were under the radar, quiet projects, and I was lucky enough to get onto one, which was a resort of all things, something that I normally don't do, but it was in a beautiful site up in the hills just out of southeast China. And I'm not going to go through the 70 odd buildings, but we worked for developers, Chinese developers, and these are 2 of the client group. We worked with translators, and I don't speak Chinese, sadly, because I'm ignorant, working on a whiteboard with a pen, and great yarns and great fun. I mean, one of the best clients I've ever had, some of the most enjoyable meetings. And the client was brilliant, as was central government in China, in that they always understood that we should use the worst sites first, and this was an exercise in taking part of the site which was obviously degraded and improving it, not taking the most beautiful and trashing it, taking old bits and resurrecting them. So we did that. And we built buildings, and we had to show that all the materials we used on this whole job came from about 50 kilometres from the site. All the bamboo you'll see all comes from the site itself, all cut there and used on the job. The stone comes from nearby. Local villagers are engaged to do a lot of the craft work, sketches, toilets, entry building, under a road, and then that's how you actually enter the resort. You come across the river. So you work with, the trick of professional life is find a really good team, all of whom are smarter than you, and work with them. You look good and you do less work. And don't let the university, let me hear me say that. I won't go through the rest, but you get the idea. You know, our job involves making models, making buildings that end up hopefully being good buildings. And this one was assessed within an inch of its life for how much energy it used, water it used, what would we do with the waste. The story of this is a long story and I won't do it tonight. But the Chinese government and Chinese officials had a great acuity about let's improve the development we do, and I've got great respect for that. The second part, in my 7 minutes left, is it's always interested me that architects are perceived and the reality is work for the rich. That's the bottom line. That's important because we need money. But it always struck me that a lot of our work is probably needed more, a lot of work generally is needed by those who aren't wealthy. And in the mid-1980s, I was asked to join a team by an Aboriginal man in Central Australia where that red dot is. His simple one-line brief to me, a medical doctor and an anthropologist who became an environmental and public health guy, 3 of us and 18 Aboriginal workers and bosses, we were given the brief of stopping people getting sick. What a great brief, one line. We had no budget, no money, no idea what to do, and he said, that's your brief, get on with it. Great job. So the medical team came up with 9 what we call healthy living practices. Simple things that all of us in the room take for granted. Washing kids is number 1, washing clothes and bedding number 2. I won't go through them. Simple, simple things. The aim was that a lot of people in this communities we're working didn't have these simple things and therefore their health suffered. So our job was to always in our work over 27 years, on the first day of every project, we never enter a house without having tools and equipment to fix something. So within 24 hours of starting a project, we get a local team, we train local people how to do some simple work, we start checking houses and testing them, we put that information into, hopefully, into a machine that tells us what's important and what's not into a local computer. We then get licensed trades to fix some stuff. So by the end of the day, the very first day of every project, mum, dad and the kids who live in that house actually see some improvement. Aboriginal people are used to people who look like me going in and promising a lot and delivering nothing. We've got to change that whole approach on day one, and that is to say, don't listen to me, just see what we change. Let's see what we do. We've done since 99, we've done 184 projects in 7,500 houses now. The dots show where they are. When we started, and the national shame of this country is the red figures, 10% of those 7,000 houses were electrically safe. Only 35% had a working shower and only 6% have anywhere you can cook a meal. That's in 2012 in Australia, one of the richest countries on earth. The white numbers show what we can raise it to with about $7,000 a house. 78% of our staff, and I'm very proud of this, are local Indigenous people, men and women, 40% women, 60% men, or 931 people as of 2009-10, a lot of people. And they look something like that, and they always look a bit rough and a bit ragged, but they do amazing work. No, they've stopped. This is good. Yeah, go forward. That's it, keep going. Yep, and that's what they look like. And they do all sorts of jobs. Keep going, yep. Detail matters. There's a shower which you're scalded by the water that comes out of the tiles and your head's frozen by the cold water that comes out of the top. That's what poor water quality does in a lot of Australia. And our work involves the dirty detail of actually improving all the bits that allow you to have a shower or allow the kid to have a shower. That's a physicist on the roof of the house monitoring how much energy goes into a hot water system. Some of our work is highly scientific just to guarantee a kid can get a wash, a shower rose, all the bits you need. And just keep pushing, can you? This is slowing up. Keep going. Yep, keep going real fast. Just keep flashing. This is what happens. We can design stuff, we can make it, we can put it on a truck and we can take it out to the paddock. Right near the end, but if you do this simple work, that is fixing apparently simple things with a broad team of local people, keep going. In New South Wales, we did 2,500 houses. We spent 11,000, stop there, $11,000 a house, doing this simple repair work. Over 75% of our staff were Aboriginal people, and the result was a 40% reduction in hospital admissions from the people who lived in the houses we fixed compared to those in the communities we didn't work. And you say, well, okay, so what? Well, that's a massive figure. Yeah, thank you. First time anyone's ever done that. Largely ignored in Australia, I'm sad to say, but has gone overseas and is now being rolled out in New York, in Brooklyn. One of the toughest bits of Brooklyn is using the same philosophy to improve housing. The last one I want to finish with is Australia has poor people, but lots of other countries in the world have people who have pretty much nothing. Nepal is a very, very poor country. We had a small village who came to Healthabitat and said, we need toilets. We have none, 450 people. Simple design, start with a pen and start scratching on the ground. First day we agreed to build 2 toilets, that's all we could commit to. We've since built 72 toilets. While we're drawing and talking to people, we find out that water's also a problem, there ain't any. Gas is a problem because it's too expensive for people to buy bottled gas. So what do they use? They use green trees, that leads to slip and the land erodes. It also leads to smoke, and the leading cause of death, we found out, in this area was in fact erosion. The leading cause of death was smoke. Women and children particularly breathing in the smoke from cooking fires. So we not only did the dunny, but we worked again with local people, and after 1 year the entire project was being run and worked and built by Nepalese people. That's the challenge, to get it local. We get toilets out of it, but we also get waste systems out of it. That's a family. And we use the shit, and let's be honest, that's what it is, from both the animal and the people. We combine it, we put it in a tank, and we actually get 3 to 4 hours cooking fuel a day out of the effluent from the families. So you get waste disposed of, so that's a health risk gone, and then you get cooking fuel which doesn't have smoke, which is a massive improvement on health. That's just a few potted examples of what I think the great gift that was given to me by this shed up the road here. The skills architects can learn both as undergraduates and postgraduates, I think can be useful. That depends on how you use them. And I hope some of you will take, certainly not this path, but a path that also uses those skills to some great benefit, not just for yourselves, but also I think even if we use 10% of our time to help people who maybe never have a chance at hiring an architect, that's probably a good thing. Thank you, and if there's any questions, happy to answer.
Just a simple question. I wonder how these projects has been funded.
The funds?
Funds, yeah.
Yeah, the Australian ones come from a wide source of money. Communities themselves at the minute, sometimes they'll put money in, they'll accumulate rent money and put it into a big pot, and that's the budget we use to fix the houses. State governments, housing departments and health departments contribute as part of their wish to improve health and to improve housing. And the federal government up till June last year for 12 years put in money also nationwide to do a lot of that work. We also have private people who put money in, we have industry who puts money in. We have it'd take me an hour to go through the funders. In Nepal, local people have to put in contributions, a significant contribution of their own cash and labour. They have to do all the digging and the hard work. Healthabitat then arranges at public talks. We get families, we've found, to donate some of the money. We think that's a great way. So mum, dad and the kids in Australia see a picture of the family in Nepal they're sponsoring for not a lot of money by our standards. They get a toilet, and many of our families have actually visited Nepal and used their toilet in Nepal, which is great. The family there sees them and they see their family that they've given a bit of a hand to. And I think that personal thing is actually really, really good. I hope that answers it a bit.
Any other questions? Yep. Indigenous housing is still an issue with people like you around. What's happened? Why hasn't it eliminated as a difficulty?
Well, as of the middle of last year, we were sacked by the federal government in this country. The government decided that our work was revealing too many skeletons in the closet of the big money projects that are building houses that are simply unlivable. So they decided it was, rather than improving the houses, it was easier to stop our work. So we were stopped dead in June last year. That's by the federal government. We still have state governments who are putting money in, and we still have Aboriginal people, and I want to stress that's the key. This problem in Australia, any Aboriginal problem is only going to be solved by Aboriginal and Islander people, not by government, that's for certain. I've probably used up my 15 minutes and I should get off. So thank you very much. I'll be around if anyone has any other questions.